Okay, if you're just tuning in, this is your Real Estate Chalk Talk. We're back with the final segment of this first hour. Remember, we got a second hour going to a 2-hour program beginning this week. So right after...
Double the pleasure, double the fun.
Double the pleasure and double the fun. Before we go back to Keith, I want you to finish up with Apple Valley, but I do want to mention that we do have one of those quiet listings that we brought on the market this week as they get through the holidays, do some cleanup work around the property, probably coming on sometime in January, depending on the weather. But it is a 1-level, 3 beds on 1 level, Rambler, single-family home in Eagan, in a great part of Eagan, one of the areas that everybody's wanting to get into. It's got new siding or nicely, freshly painted siding, new windows, new roof, good mechanicals, just a really great home. It's going to have all fresh paint on it. We're having our stagers go out there and consult with them right after Christmas as we get that property ready to bring on the market. But
you got a property or a value range on that?
That is going to be $239,722.
$239,722. It is a popular area. They're in the Northview Elementary School District right there. It's a popular place to be. Big school with a big attendance, so there'll be definitely buyers looking for that property when it does hit the open market. If we don't sell it before it hits the market. So
and the number to call is what?
612-627-8000. Last segment we were talking about another quiet listing in Apple Valley. We talked a little bit about Apple Valley. Senior has some big history in Apple Valley, actually in a past life and a past business. So you've seen that community changed quite a bit, haven't you?
Gee whiz, when we first started going out to Apple Valley, no kidding, it was 2 lanes going out there, and one of them was gravel. So, I mean, it's just, yeah, all of our lots, we owned the land on the corner of 157th and Cedar for, 15 years. And
147th.
147th and Cedar. Yeah.
So you have there's a Caribou there and the Kinko's or whatever they call themselves in the area office. That whole big plot was a garden center. That's one of my first jobs, was putting together boxes as a kid.
Putting together boxes and pulling weeds out of the pots.
Stocking potatoes. I hated pulling weeds, man. Jesus, it was the worst.
So we've seen Apple Valley grow and grow, as well as Eagan. Actually, Eagan, when we first started, had no natural gas.
They were putting 35W in on the other side of our neighborhood when we moved to Eagan, I recall. So
that's exactly right.
Interesting growth in the South Metro. So down in the South Metro, we've seen extreme growth over the past 30 years, and there's some bond programs or down payment assistance, right?
Dakota County first-time home buyer program.
And that's kind of faded in and out, hasn't it? Over the last 10 years, where they fund it, defund it, have money available, don't have money available. Man, I recall a few years back, like, God, we need to get this money, right? Because zero down payment loan programs or with down payment assistance were so common. Are they more common? Were they more common then?
Much more than.
Because of the mindset, I think?
I think the mindset, because the program still exists, the mindset has shifted, saying I've got to have money into the program. So a lot of the listeners on this program may have children who are coming up to be that first-time home buyer, and this is a great program in Dakota County that you can use. It's up to $10,000 for down payment and closing costs. What's interesting, what I like about it is veterans are, so you have to be a first-time home buyer, which means you haven't owned a home for the last 3 years, unless you're a veteran.
Oh, nice.
A veteran does not have to be a first-time home buyer. So they may want to, maybe they used a VA loan on their first home, and that second home,
move up property a little bit.
Yeah, that VA funding fee is a little pricey, so maybe they could just use this program, not have that high upfront funding fee, and come into this with zero down. Or it's $1,000. You have to have $1,000 into the deal.
Typically, the earnest money there.
Yep. And what's also interesting, we'll talk about Dakota County versus Mahafa or Minnesota Housing Finance, and what's the difference? There's really no difference between those two programs, other than Dakota County has higher income limits for the borrowers. So the borrower can, a 1 to 2 person household can make combined household income of $82,900, and 3 or more can make $95,335.
How about income, or not income, you just said those, the credit restrictions?
Credit restrictions, you have to have a 640 or greater credit score, and the home value is $273,570. So the home you just talked about, that would be a great home that would qualify right in here. So
and that's up to how much money?
Up to $10,000 for your down payment, closing costs. You can get in for $1,000, and we see it and we use the program. The interest rate is really good. It's 3.75, and then we also put on this mortgage credit certificate, which lets that interest be written off on your taxes, so your effective interest rate's actually about 2.5%.
Is the mortgage credit certificate the MHFA program then too?
Both.
So you couple, or Dakota County has that
Dakota
as well?
County has it as well.
Oh,
Yep.
cool. So it's very similar to that program.
Very similar. The only difference is the
You can make more
income.
money and use
you can
the
make more money.
Dakota program.
Yep. So it's a great program, and we'd love to have a conversation. If you know somebody that is kind of in that range, they're looking maybe more than likely a first-time home buyer, I'd love to have that conversation because we have this program. Last week we talked about some good programs in Woodbury for people who are buying foreclosures and then first-time home buyers over there. Every community typically has a program, so we love working with first-time home buyers because quite honestly they're really excited, right?
Right.
And that's what's fun about this business is when you can take somebody that's renting and they're like nervous going into the process and then they get with you guys and us, man, it's a fun process. They're excited, which makes us excited.
Yeah, it's fun to educate them through the process too and kind of see them grow throughout it as well because they're learning a lot of information.
Yeah.
Part of doing the radio show is teaching folks about the business and talking about what's available for sale and talking about different programs and be able to educate people on the process and on the industry in general.
Kelvin, I got a question for you. You mentioned it earlier in the segment. You're talking about and you too, Keith. You're talking about the 100% financing and zero down payment programs, which 10 years ago was such at the forefront of everything. It was all zero down, walk in, here's your keys, no money down, and such. And now it just isn't even part of the conversation anymore. So I'm curious about that. And then before they had programs like the CASA program and some of those programs that were basically made illegal back then. You couldn't work those programs, but CASA has actually come back up in the news. They didn't go away. They've just kind of reformulated, and that was a nonprofit organization out of D.C. What do you see as being going forward now, or how has the attitudes changed about that zero down? Do you see that the consumer just wants to have more skin in the game, or they just have now been conditioned to not ask?
I think I don't think they ask. I just think the industry isn't at the point where they want to go back to the zero down, no skin in the game. And quite honestly, I think it's healthy for people to have money into the transaction.
If you think about it, even at that time, interest rates were at like 6.875, 7.5. So not only were we
got under 7, we're excited.
Right. Not only were they not putting money into the transaction, they were also paying more on a monthly basis because of the higher interest rates. So it was more expensive in general.
More expensive to own.
So you're paying more towards interest. And if you can, Calvin, we got a couple minutes left in this first hour. Talk about interest rates, okay? We haven't mentioned it in this first hour on the show, but are they going to raise interest rates? They are, right?
Well, let's talk a little bit about the things that impact that. Yesterday on Friday was the worst day since 2013 for mortgage interest rates. It went up higher that day than since 2013. So big increase on rates. Now, what is that? So you and I can go, big increase, what does that mean? It means it went up about 0.25%, which is a big jump, right? That's a big jump. So now you're into the low 4s now on your 30-year fixed money. So you're a 4 1/8, 4 1/4, which again, awesome. That's great. But just from when you're talking with borrowers and they're talking 3.75, now you're at 4 1/4. It doesn't matter. So what impacted that? And the question is, will the Fed increase? And I think absolutely the Fed will increase. And here's why. The jobs report came out in November. The economy added 211,000 new jobs in November. The numbers show that retail stores added 31,000 of those new jobs. So it's a cyclical number, but it is increased. The October jobs report was revised up by 18,000 jobs. September was revised up by 8,000 jobs. Unemployment's at 5%. Fed meeting's 2 weeks away. They said they were going to wait and look for that number. So I think it is inevitable that the Fed will now raise rates. And Yellen was even saying, hey, if we can raise rates, that's awesome. That means we've kind of moved beyond this crisis that we were in. The economy is stabilized, and now we're heading in the right direction. And so they see it as a win. But then we talk about our friend Mario Draghigh, and we're going to touch on that in the next segment about what his impact was on mortgage interest rates this past week.
Stay tuned for our second hour of Real Estate Chalk Talk when we come back.